Keep it simple, stupid. This is church revitalization this is church revitalization for dummies today, because we're talking about simplifying your strategy. And so welcome to Not Another Baptist Podcast, a podcast exploring church revitalization, church planting, other Southern Baptist goodies for your ear holes, all that good stuff. Today, we continue that series as I shared through Mark Clifton's Reclaiming Glory by looking at the need for us to simplify our strategy. And there are probably an entire section at Lifeway of books from Mr. Tom Rainer himself, right. The good Pope of Lifeway, that have simple in the title in every different way, like simplify your meal plan, simple church, simple going to the bathroom, simple this, simple that. We have simplify your strategy today. And so I'm Matt Hensley, the pastor of First Baptist Church in Alamogordo. I'm joined by Kyle, the pastor of Mayhill. Did I get that wrong?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. We know who we are, and you know who we are, but we're both pastoring some fantastic churches in southern New Mexico, wading through the waters of church revitalization and trying not to drown. We are glad that you decided to pull up a chair today, sit down with us, and learn from all of our successes and failures. And we always hope that you'll leave this episode encouraged and maybe with a laugh or two. Kyle, how is your homeschooled family doing with their dresses or long sleeve shirts? Yes, and all, right. How's that going?
It's good. We're trucking along. We homeschool families get as excited about summer as everybody else does. So we are, in a sense, counting down the days. We got a busy summer. I know you guys got a busy summer as well. But yeah, homeschool's great. Love it. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
So how are your public school girls?
They're heathens now. I mean, they've lost that war.
Yeah, that's right.
No, they're doing great, doing well in school, trying hard, and they really impressed me by how well they have jumped up to the level that we that Cloudcroft requires. Cool. And so they're doing really well. Church is going great. Awesome. We at this point have made it past Mark 1:1, and we've made it to chapter 2 of Mark, doing well there. And Psalms is going along in our evening service, because we, as we've shared before, are more holy than First Alamo, and we have the evening service because we haven't simplified that strategy just yet. Well, maybe after
this will be in your wheelhouse.
This will be. But how's Alamo going?
We're going well. So we're walking through Hosea, which is the first time I've ever preached through. Honestly, it's the first time I've ever preached through a prophet. And
I haven't read it yet.
I'm just kidding.
It's in the Bible.
Hosea has its own what's the right word? Quirks. So yeah, it's interesting. But
just try not to be a heretic.
Yeah, that's right. But the reason I decided to dive into Hosea is just because of God's extravagant love that's laid out there, and especially as we're talking about revitalizing in church. One of the things that I think is really important is knowing, listen, God hasn't abandoned us. God's love for us is very much as real now as it ever has been. So whether the church is running 1,000 or 10, God's love is constant for his people. So it's important. It's good to, and it's fun. You get some weird looks when you talk about Hosea did what? Married who? So
well, let's dive into today's imperative. We've got simplify your strategy today. So we're keeping it simple. We know that a lot of times in a church, we've got a lot of programs, or we've got a lot of different Sunday school class. We've got all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes we make it a little harder than it needs to be. So in a church revitalization work, I'm sure the first thing we need to do is add more to what we're already doing.
So I'm not exactly sure when this mindset creeped in that the signs of a vibrant church is busyness. But at some point, because you look at almost any church schedule across the board, and we bought into that belief that, man, a vibrant, growing church means there's going to be more things happening. And the problem with that is, I think as once very vibrant churches have kind of declined off that, either plateaued or in some cases, declined almost to the verge of death, we didn't let programs go. So what'll happen is you'll have a church of 50 who still has the programs that they did when they ran 200. Or, I mean, even if you're still talking a church of 200 that's declined, they're still trying to run the programs that they would when they were 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't work, because what happens is you're going to end up burning out your people because there are fewer people trying to do more. So simplifying your strategy is simply reducing the times that members are expected to be in the church building, and realizing, coming to the hard realization, if necessary, hey, we don't have the people, we don't have the budgets, we don't have the resources to do what we once did. So figuring out, okay, what's our target, what's our purpose here, and really latching and becoming tenacious. How about that word, for chasing after your vision? Tom Rainer, as you mentioned, Simple Church, probably one of the best books that's been written in the last 20 years on this. And he'll talk about how difficult it is to cut things, because someone's identity is tied into that ministry. So there will certainly be times to cut. I think more than not, there will be times to let things die. Mm-hmm. So that you're not the bad guy who came in and killed something, but it just kind of died its natural process. But the thing that and I think a big part of this too, our culture is different now than it was 30 years ago, even than it was 10 years ago. So let me speak to Alamogordo real quick. We're an Air Force community. So primarily a lot of our growth that we've seen since I've been here in the last 2 years is with Air Force families. Those guys work really weird schedules. They're here on Sunday mornings, and most of them are plugged into one of our Sunday school classes, small groups, and the worship service. They don't have evenings free. Sometimes they're working till 8 or 9. Sometimes from one week to the next, they might shift from working days to working nights the next week, and the next week it's back. So I mean, the Air Force doesn't help us out in some ways, but that's kind of caused us to simplify our strategy.
You don't want to write the general and say, hey,
yeah, here's our church schedule. If you would just, plan your, we appreciate your guarding us and keeping us safe, but if you can do it in these hours, that would be awesome.
We'd appreciate it. We have our small group and our prayer time.
Yes, that's right.
Can you please?
That's right. So what does it look like in Mayhill, or even previous churches? What's your experience with kind of coming in with an overcrowded church schedule, and how have you handled that?
So I served a church that we were Bible studied to death, which you would think would be a great thing. There's Bible studies every night of the week. But the problem was, we had 50, 60 families that we were drawing from, and the same ones were essentially being asked to be there every night of the week except for one.
Now, you were pastor, right? Were you leading all of these?
No.
Okay.
Would I lead all of those?
Okay.
No.
All right.
No. These some of them were kind of like you said, people's identity wrapped up in this one. This was my, my baby, and if you didn't go to the other one, then that one felt bad. And the way I looked at it is I can't go to all of them. I'd never be at home, and so I just rotated through them, and some of them eventually died the death they needed to die, but it's like you kind of felt bad to make such a big importance about the study of God's word, and we're going to cut a Sunday school class or a Bible study.
And it's different if you have like different small groups that are meeting, but if it's the same pool that's expected to be at everything, and so was that like a leftover from when the church was bigger?
No, I think it was a genuine desire to equip and incur and build up. I think they just thought the more they did that, the better it was. Of course, we didn't have time then at that point if it's one thing to be equipped, but you need an outlet to put that into practice. There was no outlet to do that at that point in any, there was no free time. So I don't think it was so much a big thing that we just kept those things on. I think it was a genuine desire that if, that the early church had everything in common. So we're going to be here every night. I think it was kind of that mentality. Now in Mayhill, the problem that we run into is I live across the street, and we have one member that lives next door. Everybody else is about a 30-minute drive away.
Okay.
And so anything that we do during the week, you're talking, it has to be 5:30 at the earliest
Mm.
to have really the chance of somebody that's a worker
Yeah.
coming to it. Forget all of the meals and all. I mean,
Right.
just a chance for them to be there, them to get off work and just rush straight there. And we have some that are faithful, and they, as soon as they get out, they teach at the school. As soon as they get out, they are flying up the
Mm.
mountain or down the mountain down to where we are, from Cloudcroft, where they'll come and they'll do the prayer meeting or the, our kids deal, whatever it
Yeah.
is. But then putting it any later where maybe they might have time to eat or something like that, because of where we live and how dark it is and the elk and all of that, makes it more problematic that the old folks aren't going to come because they're not going to drive at night. And so we have to push it earlier. That cuts out the young
Yeah.
people. To push it later, that cuts out the old people. And, some of them are not well attended. Our Sunday morning, we might have 120 on a
Yeah.
Sunday, and our midweek, prayer time is going to have 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Because part of it isn't a desire to not be there. I mean, I think people
Right.
want to be there. They just can't.
Yeah.
And
Well, especially this time of year. I mean, so, we're getting ready to come into the spring, but winter lasts a long time up where you are.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and so not just cold, which certainly affects particularly some of your elderly population, but I mean, you can always run into snow or, those elk and wildlife.
yeah, the
that you have it
bigger
dark.
issue
Yeah.
for us is really the darkness.
Okay.
And the elk, because they for whatever reason, God didn't clothe them in like lime orange or something.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they blend in perfectly
Yep.
with the highway. And if you're going the speed limit, it's not really a matter of if you're going to hit them. It's more when.
Yeah.
And we, just about monthly, we'll have somebody that's run into
Wow.
something. And so
Occupational hazard.
yeah, and so I mean, that's, Rebecca, she will not drive at night, so we go
Yep.
to the MVBA thing. We talked about that,
Yep.
A couple of days ago, that, with that, it's great to go. I want to be there, but getting out, it
Yep.
is pitch black on the way up there. And
That's our local association. For
Yeah.
those of you who aren't familiar with our,
y'all don't know everything
acrostic,
about,
yeah.
I mean, I post
our
everything.
abbreviations. Yeah. So that's our local association, which we meet monthly, second Monday of the month. And we serve a big association, or we pastor churches in a large association. So sometimes we've got distances to drive. Yeah. So I'll share a little bit about what I did, because I got here and I kind of fell victim, I think, to the more is more. More activities, busier schedules is more. So about 6 months after I got here, we added we were doing Sunday morning. We didn't do Sunday nights. We have some committee meetings that meet a couple of Sundays a month. So Sunday mornings, Wednesday night, and then I added a Thursday night service. We have a ladies' Bible study that meets on Tuesday nights. Then I added a Thursday night service, kind of a recovery service. And we have anywhere from 10 to 25, depending on the week. So that was 18 months ago. And it occurred to me, our Wednesday night crowd has kind of dwindled down to the same 5-6 people or so. And a few months ago, I was looking at that and I was going, is there a way to simplify our strategy to have the same ministries happening, just have them happen simultaneously? So, but because myself and our worship leader, she and I were both here until after 8:00 on Wednesday nights and on Thursday nights. And after 18 months, that's worn on us. So what we're doing now is we're actually combining our Wednesday night and Thursday night services. So we're going to gather in the fellowship hall. We'll sing a couple of songs at 6:00, and then we'll split off into different Bible studies. And so our hope there is for one, not just cutting a night out of the week, but also allowing some of the folks who come to our Thursday night service to interact with some of the folks that are a part of our church, which wasn't happening. I mean, they were almost two exclusive groups. They didn't, the folks who attended Thursday night didn't come on Sunday mornings. So we thought, man, this would be a great time for some of our church folk to interact. So we're still doing the same thing. I think we're still going to reach the same amount of people, just simpler. And I'm only here till after 8, one night a week rather than 2 nights a week, which would be awesome in church softball because I'll be able to play Tuesdays and Thursday nights. But that's not the reason to do it.
Sure. Whatever.
But yeah, that's what I tell my wife. That's not why I did. But no, I mean, so the point when we talk about simplifying your strategy is never to lessen your ministry, right? But it's
to make it more effective.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so in Simple Church, Tom Rainer talks a lot. One of the examples they use is Google versus Yahoo. And just, man, if you go to google.com, what do you have?
You really just have the search engine.
Just the search. And it's a blank page and just the search engine, right? And it's efficient. You go to Yahoo. It's been years since I've been to yahoo.com. Last time I was there, I mean, it's like an assault of the senses.
It crashed our church computer because was until I fixed it at this point. Yeah. It's like the default search engine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I was trying to bring up something and it comes up. It's just all these things are popping. I was like, nope.
Yeah. And so there's a reason that I think that Google's become the most popular search engine because it's simple. You go there for a purpose, right? So I'm going to search for this thing and I'm not distracted by all the news stories and all that. Now, the problem is, and Tom Rainer talks about this, it would be very difficult for Yahoo to make their page look like Google. I mean, they have sponsorships on their page and the certain formats that they've committed to. Simplifying a church strategy is kind of like, and he talks about this. It's easier to plant simple than to revitalize and become simple, right? But it's worth it. I mean, so you get your vision down and okay, this is, so we're all about, if we want to be about loving our community, okay, then what are some effective ways we can love on our community? And being at the church building 4 nights a week does not help us necessarily love on our community. We love on our community by being out in the community. And so I'm not sure that there's a like one size fits all way to do this. It's gonna depend on your individual context, what your individual vision is, kind of your target that you're trying to go after. But begin to eliminate things that don't help you pursue that vision. And I would say this too, and I think you would agree with me. Take the long road. Right. So don't go in and just start killing people's ministries because you will kill your ministry if you do that. So understand. And I know you hate it. Game, as they say. Yes. Play the long game. I know you hate this, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. Right. So you're not going to run.
You can use that if you give me like oranges and water every 2 months or something.
So Hensley's a marathon runner, right? And you're going to run a 25-mile marathon different than
26
point. Gosh, there's a reason.
Yes, there's a difference between 26.2 miles and a 5K.
Yes,
you go just guns a-blazing in a 5K because you're going to be done in 15 minutes.
Right.
You do the marathon and you're I would be done.
You would be done,
but you'll be done in about 5 days. But the marathon, you're pacing yourself and you're trying to keep kind of a talking point as you're running, be able to communicate. Otherwise you will gas out very quick. So anything else before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, like you said at the beginning, keep it simple, stupid, and this is a thing you want to start communicating to your church as early as possible about your vision, getting them to latch onto that, and then eliminating things slowly over time with patience and grace and understanding to meet that vision. So
do what he says, not what I do. Thanks so much for joining us today. We know there's a million things you could be doing, but you took the time to listen to this dumpster fire. We hope that somehow, some way, it was helpful and brought you some encouragement, maybe even laugh a little. We ask that you would subscribe on iTunes, whatever podcast feed you use, or visit www.notanother.baptistpodcast.com, or find us on Facebook under our name or on Twitter at NAB_podcast. But until next time, may your coffee be as black as night and as bold as the gospel you declare. Keep it simple, stupid. See you soon.
Have a good one.